Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back for another EVE Online video. Welcome back also to JITA, the largest trade hub in EVE Online. So today's video is going to be a market video. At first I thought we would take a look at the ships that may be popular in the Alliance tournament since the rules have come out. We also got like the point distribution for the different ships, but it looks like it was announced so much in advance since the tournament itself is only in November that it doesn't really have a market impact. Perhaps a little bit before the Alliance tournament itself will see an impact, but right now I really haven't noticed anything. So we are going to take a look at some mining ships and some industrials, because if we look at, for instance, the catalyst prices, well, they have gone down in price quite substantially. In fact, since May, since pretty much a little bit after the industry changes came to EVE Online, they have halved in price from 2 million down to 1 million on the chart. That of course makes suicide ganking a lot cheaper or a lot more effective depending on your perspective. You could also say a lot more annoying because it is now more risky to transport stuff, to mine stuff, and that is something that you do want to keep in mind. Basically, you might want to almost have your maximums when it comes to the amount of stuff that you tend to haul in a single trip if you want to keep up with the price of the hulls. So let's take a look at that. Then we'll go to the market and we will start with the mining ships. So let's start with the mining barges themselves, and this I would say is okay news, at least here for the Covetor, for instance. We are going down below the 40 million. So while the investment for ganking is going down, it looks like if you're happy with a Tech 1 mining barge, that price is decently reasonable. Let's see what they're selling for. Yeah, 39 million for the sellers, and there's not a lot of buyers. They are coming in up to 35 million in the Tranquility Trading Tower, but definitely low numbers. You can see the volumes going down here with the summer slump and with the post-industry changes as well. I think we got this rush in April, lots of stuff being built, being sold. There's big reserves out there. Whoever wanted a Covetor, in all likeliness, already has it, and as a result this market is going down, but it's also going down in price. So if you have to replace your ship for a reason, it may be quite okay to do. Now the Procurer is still a little bit more expensive than what it was, let's say 6 months ago, where it was just a little bit above 30 million, but we are going down and we are below 40 million here as well. Must also be said, I think the Procurer will be one of the least likely targets for a suicide gang since it is the most tanky of the barges. And then we've got the Retriever a little bit in the middle. It's back at these 6-month prices before the industry changes actually hit. So very big rush here as well, with an increase in price that happened in April, and now we are starting to decline back to the former averages. You can buy a Retriever for, well, 39 million on most sales, 35 million actually for someone that's putting up 30 of them. That seems to be pretty desperate. This could actually be a sign of exactly what I was talking about with the rush in industry that happened in April. We do have very big stocks available out there. Now we're in the summer slump, lower activity, lower demand, and some people are apparently losing their patience and are willing to dump 30 Retrievers at 35.5 million when the next seller is at 39 million. Or is it because of what's happening coupled? No, that's 11 jumps out. So I would not say that this is tied to like the player-owned trade hubs or anything like that. Just a very aggressive sale of 30 Retrievers could really crash the price back down down here quite a little bit. But volumes are definitely worrying. Next up, we'll take a look at the Tech 2 versions. So here is the Hulk, highest yield, lowest tank. Definitely, I would say, a target for suicide ganking. If anyone spots a Hulk, really doesn't take that many destroyers to get on top of it, especially when it's fit for yield. Then I think just 2 or 3 catalysts could very easily take down a Hulk in high sec. You can see decently expensive, a little bit of pressure on this Tech 2 ship as well. We're basically right back where we started the year at, and then we 6 months ago we actually had a slump down to 230 million. It is still 285 million for the sellers, 250 million for the buyers. And then you may wonder, well, where is this demand, this support coming from for the Hulk? And I'm going to say that in all likeliness, if there's still mining happening in nullsec, right, it's more organized, that's where the Hulk will find its place. You can have relative safety with enough intelligence and things like that around there. And then of course a Hulk that's supported by an Orca, by perhaps a Rorcal, is very effective when it comes to mining in high sec. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend it unless you like want to bait it out a little bit, fit for extra tank, but that always feels rather bad for a miner, right? You want to have as much yield as possible at the same time. So yeah, the Hulk is still very expensive at 280, a little bit of pressure on the price. Then we get the Machina, which I would say is probably a little bit more popular than the Hulk for high sec, and yeah, to my surprise, we can see a volume spike and an increased price. Are we really at 300 million? We're already going back down to 267 million for the sellers, 250 for the buyers. Also still very expensive, but basically middle of the road. You can get a decent yield and still have a little bit of focus on tank on the Machina. I've flown that one as a mining ship for a very long time. When the Hulk actually lost, I think it was its third high slot, or maybe even when just the Machina was the one with a very nice ore hold, that was basically the ship that allowed you to stay in the belt for a decent amount of time, which a solo Hulk was out of the question because that was cut down quite a lot. And then finally we also have the Skiff, very expensive. So if you're looking for safety, you're going for the Skiff, of course. You can get a pretty big tank on that, Tech 2 resistance, all of that good stuff, and you're paying the price. In fact, all of them are very much in the same area of price. 286 million for the sellers, 260 million for the buyers, with the Hulk apparently dropping in price, whereas the Machina and the Skiff are going up. I'm going to say that this is the impact of what I was talking about, what we're actually looking at a little bit here. It is how much more effective suicide ganking has become price-wise, since all of the destroyers have gone back down in price. Well, Hulks are prime targets for that suicide ganking, so I'm pretty sure that they are losing a lot of popularity to the Machina and especially the Skiff under these circumstances, and you're seeing that reflected in the price. Then I want to take a quick look at the Orca as well. Which is what I'm mining in at the moment, and that one is also very expensive. So popularity, even with these lower volumes, I would say popularity of the ships, what's most used at the moment for mining, it definitely plays a very big role in what's happening with the price. And an Orca is now going for almost 2 billion ISK on the chart, double the price from about a year ago, and it is actually 2 billion pretty much for the sellers, 1.8 billion for the buyers. It is very expensive, but if you're looking for a big tank, well, the Orca can of course have the biggest tanks of all of these mining ships that you can use in high sec. So that is your natural end game, in my opinion at least. If you're a bit more of a solo-minded player and you do enjoy mining, you want to get into the Orca because you get such a bigger tank than any of the other ships, and it's drone mining. It's definitely a little bit different. You can get bumped in trouble as well. We saw that in a video previously where someone actually stole my drones that way, but with a little bit of attention and now knowing that this can happen, I basically feel like I'm way more ready. I'm not letting my drones fly out 5 kilometers or anything like that. I'm keeping them very close to me so that I can respond more quickly and effectively, and this would be my end goal mining ship, the Orca. One quick note on this, of course, CCP has announced actually quite a while ago that they are looking into the Orca, the Rorcal and the Porpoise, when it comes to giving them extra stuff to do, but not necessarily keeping them as mining ships. So we don't know what their plans are. I always mention this, that for me the Orca does feel like it's in a good spot. It is, I would say, close to Machina level of yield if you go full yield as well with the rigs and everything to to give your drones the max yield, but you can still feel the nice tank. It feels like a good solo end game goal, you could say, for miners. So I would personally prefer it, of course, that they don't like completely gut the mining that the Orca can do. But we will see what the CCP decides to do with all of that, of course. And then we'll actually take a quick look at the Porpoise as well. Not really sure what category this was in, but this one is actually going down in price after the April rush, where we went up to 180 million, 75 million at the start of the year, and it's now costing 95 million for the sellers, 84 million for the buyers. Definitely an option, I would say, as well. I get to take a quick look at the fitting. I don't fly this very often, but I think, yeah, with 4 medium slots, a couple of low slots, you can probably, let's see, trades here, yeah, mining drones. So this could be, you know, like an intermediary step if you want to like experience the Orca playstyle before actually committing to a 2 billion-isk ship. The Porpoise is at 95 million is definitely a lot more doable. And a big part of all of this as well is, of course, if we go for industry and then we view this one in industry. A Porpoise only costs these regular Tech 1 minerals to produce, so this is definitely still very cheap and has not gone up in price substantially because of the industry changes, whereas the Orca does require, let's go take a quick look at that as well then. So this is the Orca, and then we can view this one in industry as well. Does require life support backup units, some of these core temperature regulators, 800 auto integrity preservation seals, and some capital corp. No, that's normal stuff. But yeah, these new items basically are a big part of the reason why prices are up as well. Together, I would say, with popularity for the Orca at the moment in this suicide gang bonanza that's happening with the destroyers having become this cheap. But hopefully CCP can maybe look at it. If it really becomes a problem, you know, I do think that they have the levers in hand to, for instance, maybe require a little bit of something extra for the destroyers or something like that. We'll see. CCP is definitely being, in my opinion, decently slow with you know, the further steps in industry changes and all of that, but at the same time, you first have to, of course, give players and the game time to digest all of these changes. Rushing into, you know, responses to certain things that are happening right now may not be the right move. So then we'll move on to the industrial ships. We'll start with the standard ones, so just some pretty small Tech 1 transport ships. I don't often look at this because I don't fly this very often. You know, if it's really small, I use an interceptor to try to get through things. Maybe I should switch that to the bubble immune shuttles for some stuff, and then I actually use the, let's see, I do use the Minmatar Wraith for transportation if I want like fast stuff that's not too expensive. But yeah, let's take a quick look at the prices here. Here's the Bestower. You can also see that this one has gone down in price. So when it comes to transportation, sure, suicide ganking is easier, but your Bestower also costs 2 million ISK, which is not that high of a price. Sigil also clearly under pressure, back on that 6, even 10 months ago price range of 2 million ISK. Very doable. Badger settling at 1 million ISK. That's actually pretty damn cheap. And then the Tyra slowly heading down for 2 million as well. On the Galente front, they've got a little bit more options, but the trend seems clear. Here is the Epital going down towards 2 million. Idron Mark 5, a little bit above 2, actually selling for 2.5 to 2.7 million, but it has a lot of potential, of course, for either big transport, bigger tank, all of that stuff. Cryo still a little bit of premium, but yeah, between 2 and 2.5 million. Honestly, none of these, and look at the trends here as well. Miasmos going down quite a lot. And then, oops, forgot to click on the Nereus, still a little bit above 2 million. Nothing too outlandish. Hoarder 2. Here is the Mammoth. Let's take a quick look at the sell prices. 2.5 million. Wraith, again, under pressure now, below 2 million ISK. Actually love it, love how it looks as well on average. So pretty good stuff. And then we have the Noctis. We'll take a quick look at that again. An April rush, very expensive, especially right after the industry changes hit, up until here in May at 140 million. Is that correct? Yep. And now it's already down to 92 million ISK, losing probably around 50% of the price over the last 3 months. So we do have to, I think, make this nuanced picture when it comes to suicide ganking, especially Tech 1 against Tech 1. Of course, the destroyers have become cheaper, but so have the transport ships. Let's take a look at the advanced ones then. Here is the Impel for Tech 2, and this to me is pretty interesting. We are seeing quite a little bit of volatility, but a lot of these Tech 2 ships now, I'm gonna say with the summer slump, are seeing some pressure as well. So we've got an Impel that just about a week ago was actually selling for less than 200 million ISK. It's up to 233 now on a lack of new supply, I'm going to say, but overall this was very cheap about a week ago. Then the Prorator, also clearly under pressure, currently costing 138 million ISK. I mean, it's expensive, of course, but it is Tech 2, way better resistances. You can get a much better tank on that, and quite a few of them have actually, you know, some very nice perks to them as well. Bustard, same story, about 10 days ago, going below 250 million. Then we've got the Crane, clearly away from that top here in May at 230, currently costing 175 million ISK. Gonna go through the whole list here, but yeah, the Okator also quite, I would say, affordable on this 1 year chart. Viator at 140 is doable as well. Mastodon 230, and then the Prowler at around 160 million ISK. Now that's relative, of course, but for a Tech 2 ship, which I do think you can give a very reasonable tank to protect against ganking, these feel like pretty reasonable charts and reasonable prices as well. So that's the industrial command ships, the Orca and the Porpoise. We saw, Orca very expensive because of the industry changes. Porpoise actually very reasonable in price as well. And so before we take a look at the biggest ships, then we are going to take a look at, of course, the freighters and the jump freighters to end up with. This is really what I want to mention with this video a little bit as well, right? We do see some complaining about suicide ganking because that threshold has gone down, but your ship hulls as well, and so it really does come down for a very large part to what are you transporting, and that is where you have to adapt yourself to the new reality. Transporting 500 million ISK in a Tech 1 in a Tech 1 transport ship is really not a good idea. Even, before, for the Wraith, my threshold was like 100 million ISK. Maybe I should bring that down to maybe 50 or 75 million or whatever it is that I feel comfortable with. But that is really, I would say, the importance of how you should adapt to this new situation if you're doing a lot of transportation and a lot of mining as well. So let's take a look at freighter prices. These, of course, because they are capital ships, have changed substantially with the industry changes. You can already see here from the Providence chart that we are talking about very expensive ships. And so the reason is, we'll take a quick look at that here as well, view in industry, that we also have stuff like radar, FTL, interlink communicator, auto integrity preservation seals, life support backup systems, and a capital core temperature regulator. Very expensive stuff to make. We even have some of these trigger Neuralink conduits. Very, very expensive to make at the moment, and that means that a Providence is going for more than 3 billion ISK. And here we do, in my opinion, start to have a little bit of a difference. It takes a lot of organization and effort to bring enough, let's say, catalysts, together on a single Providence, but it is doable. And this, of course, is also a doubling in price, whereas the destroyer prices have halved over the last 3 months or so, a doubling in price of the last year for the Providence, for instance. But here, sure, freighter transportation, I would say, has become way more risky because just getting rid of the hull can probably get you very close to a positive a positive kill mail for the suicide ganker at these prices. 3.6 billion for the sellers, 3.2 billion for the buyers. Very, very expensive. Then we've got the Charon, same story, above 3 billion. At the start of the year it was 1.5 billion. So 3.3 billion for the sellers and 3.1 here for the buyers. Obelisk, which is what I actually own and can fly, also way above 3 billion. So it's the same story all over the place. Fenrir as well. Even this one went up to 4 billion ISK on one of the sales apparently. 3.9 for one of them. These are very expensive and have become very risky to fly. So you do, want to have experience and avoid some of the suicide ganking hotspots, I think, if you are planning to move a lot of stuff in a freighter. We also have the bowhead, but that's the exact same story. Also from 1.5 to well above 3 billion ISK. These are super expensive, and it's even worse, if I'm not mistaken, for the jump freighters. Yeah, these have just responded right away to the industry changes in April. Let's take a quick look at that. It is Tech 2 on top of that. So if we take a look at view in industry, this probably becomes a massive complex web. Yeah, you need that. You need a Providence as well, a Tech 1 version, which has doubled in price. Then you need a lot of these extra materials as well, plus Morphite, which is extremely expensive at the moment. Some of those prices are crazy. Yeah, these jump freighters are of course super expensive, going for almost 14 billion ISK for an ARC, 14.5 for the sellers, 13.4 for the buyers. Then we get the Ria for Caldari selling for 15 billion ISK about a week ago. For the Galente and Char, it's 11 billion, a little bit more muted in price, but definitely still, a super expensive transport ship. And then we've got the Nomad here as well, going for almost 12.5 billion at the tail end, and not even selling every day. So these jump freighters are super expensive. Not only their Tech 1 base has doubled in price, they require these extra materials, Morphite, super expensive. So these are very, very difficult and complex to make, but of course they have this advantage that they can jump. They don't need to use the gates, and so they have a way of getting relatively safe travel going as well, especially once you know what you're doing. These are of course used mostly in alliance level nullsec types of trade routes that they set up over very, very long distances. And these, if suicide gankers got the chance to catch one of these jump freighters, they would certainly do it. But I would say that it's mostly the freighters that now have to worry about these lower destroyer prices, while their price has gone up this much. Usually you won't get a chance basically on a jump freighter that knows what he's doing. And yeah, that's what I wanted to cover in this video. I wanted to take a quick look at what the impact potentially was from the suicide ganking. I honestly think that it's still okay, because your hull prices for the most part have gone down as well. Yeah, the one tip that I want to give you guys, and that I'm now going to try to incorporate as well, because I do move exploration stuff quite often. I do move ores and other things as well in a wraith, for instance, which I don't want to bring that up to 100 million anymore. I do think we are going to look at lower amounts so that we are less likely to be ganked in an economically viable way, you could say, because that's at least decently often, I would say, the equation that is being made. They've got an alt ready at one of the previous gates, they quickly scan your ship, they know what's in there, they've got a threshold, and then they'll try to grab you if they get a chance. Just don't get to that threshold is basically your job as someone that transports stuff from point A to B in EVE Online at the moment. Be careful with what you transport in your hulls at the moment, because yeah, suicide ganking and destroyers, it's become a lot cheaper after the industry changes. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.